In 1933, an 18-year-old boy ran away from home. It wasn't his first attempt. And no, he wasn't running because he had offended anyone. This young man from Tongchon, Kangwondo, was running to change his life and his family's fortunes. He later ended up working with a rice store in Seoul. And within 6 months, he had been promoted to the position of accountant for that rice store. Little did they know that in less than 2 years, he would rise to own the store. And a few decades later, he would be recognized as one of the men who revolutionized the nation of South Korea. This is the story of how the first son in a family of farmers built one of the largest and most successful brands the world has ever known. Chung Ju-young was born in Tongchon, Kangwondo, North Korea. He was the oldest of 7 children and was born into a large, impoverished farming family. Chung had aspirations of becoming a teacher when he was a young boy. But those dreams were dashed by the family circumstances at the time, which effectively prevented Chung from pursuing higher education. Despite the challenges, Chung could go to the local Confucian school his grandfather ran whenever he wasn't working on the family farm. Chung Ju-young was business savvy from a young age, as shown by his regular trips to the town to sell wood. When he went to town, he was exposed to newspaper articles, which inspired him to want to escape the poverty that had befallen his family. He was expected to lead his family of 6 younger siblings because he was the oldest child and the son of farmers. He did not want that kind of life, so he decided to escape not once, not twice, but on 4 separate occasions. At age 16, he made his first attempt to flee. To escape the harsh reality of farm life, Chung and a friend decided to move to the city of Saishin, now in North Korea, for employment. The two arrived at the town of Kojin after a 15-mile journey through the most hazardous regions of the Paichon Valley, where they accepted positions as construction laborers. They put in a lot of labor for little compensation, but Chung liked having his own source of income. Before Chung's father found out where they were, the 2 boys kept at their jobs for another 2 months. He returned home with them. Soon after, Chung started to come up with a new escape strategy. Before the second escape attempt, Chung had developed an interest in and love for civil engineering. With 2 friends, he fled to Kyoto. The journey seemed doomed from the onset. Chung and his friend were deceived by a stranger who promised them work, but took their money. Their quest ended when Chung's father found them at his grandfather's house. After a year of working on the farm with his father, Chung tried to leave home for a better life. He bought a train ticket to the capital by selling one of his father's cows. After landing in Kyoto, Chung enrolled in a bookkeeping school to become an accountant. He read about Abraham Lincoln, who rose from poverty to fame. His father returned him to his hometown 2 months later. In 1933, at 18, Chung decided to make his final escape attempt. Some people believe his father permitted him to go, while others claim he fled at night with a friend who went with him in an effort to avoid being pushed into marriage. What is certain is that once he landed in Kyoto, he seized every opportunity to work. In the beginning, he had jobs as a laborer at Jinsen Harbor, in Incheon, South Korea, a construction worker at Bosang Professional School, and a handyman for a plant that made starch syrup. Chung started his entrepreneurial career by distributing rice from a bicycle for the Bokung rice store in Seoul after almost a year of employment at the syrup plant. He gained the respect of the rice store's regular customers and so pleased the owner that, after just 6 months, he was promoted to the position of accountant and started to hone his business acumen. After spending 2 years of his life working at the rice store, its owner passed away in 1937 and gave Chung the business. At 22, Chung gained control of the firm, renamed it the Kangyeol Rice Store, and generated good profits up until the beginning of 1939, when Japan established a harsh rice restriction system as its war preparations intensified, forcing Koreans out of the rice trading industry. After being forced out of the company, Chung started to hunt for another way to re-enter it, but by 1940, he had started to turn his attention away from rice. He set out to find a firm he could launch with less funding than the rice enterprise. He made the decision to start a car repair shop. He was able to purchase a service garage with the help of some wealthy friends' loans, and with a loan of 3,000 won, he launched the Adu service garage there. He had never driven a vehicle before, and the most modern transportation he had ever used was a cargo bike. The workforce increased from 20 to 70 within 3 years, and Chung was able to generate respectable revenue. To aid in the war effort, the Japanese colonial government compelled the garage to merge with the steel company in 1943. His business was inevitably shut down, and he was not compensated. He returned to Gasan with 50,000 yen in savings to try to make the best of the situation. Chung founded a new business, Hyundai Civil Industries, in 1947, later Hyundai Construction. At that time, the new business employed 11 people, including an engineer who had formerly taught at a technical college. He started this new business in anticipation of industrialization and post-war reconstruction, but his plans did not turn out as he had hoped. In 1950, communists invaded, and like many Koreans, Chung fled Seoul in the summer of 1950. He stayed in Busan for much of the conflict. The presence of Chung's brother, Chung In-young, was crucial to the future development of the business. He gave birth to his son, Chung Man-jun, in Busan as well. Chung In-young was a fluent English speaker, a very unusual asset in 1950s Korea. He was going to be of assistance to Chung in getting lucrative deals with the American army. It was easy for Chung to conduct business with Americans because, first, they had money and paid well. Second, they did not pay too much attention to their books. And finally, they needed managers who could meet deadlines, and not many Korean managers were up to the task. Hyundai Construction was one of Korea's largest constructors by the end of the war. According to Korean standards, the corporation was significant. These standards were a challenge since they were so deplorably low. Because Korea was a poor, developing nation, Chung tended to act on a much more global scale. Despite this drawback, Hyundai managed and finished a few significant projects, including the restoration of Seoul's Indo-Gyo Bridge. He had no idea that his effectiveness was catching the attention of some powerful individuals, notably a young general by the name of Park Chun-hee. After pulling off a successful coup in 1961, Park Chun-hee made the decision to assemble a select group of trusted business people, among them Chung Ju-young. These merchants, together with Park, were crucial in the development of the Korean chaebol. Chung's goal was to promote Korean construction services outside of Korea. Hyundai Group became a significant international participant in this industry. Chung Ju-young significantly aided this transition. Middle Eastern building projects were where Hyundai Group first saw financial success. Following the government's advice, it started to diversify in the early 1970s by investing in the shipbuilding, automobile, and petrochemical industries. Among other things, Hyundai was one of the 4 Korean corporations that the government pushed, essentially ordered, to begin the large-scale manufacture of vehicles in the middle of the 1970s. This was the modest beginning of Korean automotive exports. The Cortina, which was produced in partnership with Ford Motor Company, was Hyundai Motor Company's first model, and it served as the company's official debut in 1968. The beginning of a long and fruitful adventure began with the release of the automobile. The car, produced in the Ulsan facility in the nation's southeast, was popular enough to support Chung Ju-young in his endeavor. The entire production of the cars, from groundbreaking to full-scale production, was done in under 6 months, the fastest time for any Ford assembly plant at that time. The Ford Cortina was manufactured for a total of 20 years, beginning in 1962 and ending in 1982, spanning 5 generations, from the Mark I all the way up to the Mark V. For the 10 of the 20 years that the Ford Cortina was available for purchase in Great Britain, it was the model year that brought in the most customers overall. In all, the United Kingdom saw the sale of 2.8 million different types of Cortina automobiles. The success of the projects spurred Chung to his next project. Chung, in fact, chose to scale up his efforts to build a strong and independent automobile firm with the launch of the Pony. Chung Ju-young recruited several British automotive executives and engineers, beginning with George Turnbull, the former managing director of Austin Morris, to accomplish his goals of producing high-quality, mass-produced vehicles for the South Korean public. Turnbull went on to recruit 5 other expert British engineers for various parts of the project Chung was working on. For the body designer Kenneth Barnett and 2 engineers, John Simpson and Edward Chapman. For the chassis engineer John Crosswaite was brought on board. Then for the chief development engineer, Peter Slater was called upon. Italian design maestro Giorgio Giugiaro handled the styling of the car. They collaborated to create the Pony, the first mass-produced car in South Korea. It was introduced to the market in December 1975 after being presented at the Turin Motor Show in October 1974. The car was nicknamed Kukmencha, which means car for the people. The car was first exported to Ecuador and soon thereafter to the Benelux countries, its first major steps into the international markets. The Pony wasn't just a flash in the pan. The car was truly a global product that foreshadowed the global reach of its manufacturer. It was manufactured in Korea, developed with the assistance of British engineers, styled by Italy's Giorgio Giugiaro, and equipped with a 1.2-liter Mitsubishi engine. It was just a matter of time before Hyundai started offering its prize creation for sale on the international market. The Pony was Hyundai's flagship car for many years, but they were not yet truly global. The Pony finally made its way into Britain in 1982. It was the first Korean brand to make its way to Britain. In its first year in Britain, it sold 2,993 cars, almost hitting the 3,000 car mark. From Britain, it began to make inroads into Canada, where its sales far outperformed previous projections and expectations in its first year. At one point, the Pony became the top-selling car in Canada. Despite its successes, it had yet to enter the American market, and this was because the Pony did not initially pass the American emission standards. Hyundai continued to progress across the globe, and by 1985, it had built its 1 millionth car. The breakthrough into the American market finally came in the shape of Pony XL. It was the company's first front-wheel drive vehicle and, like the original Pony, was designed by Giorgio Giugiaro. It sold 168,000 units in its first year of sales in the United States, setting an all-time record that is still in place today. The car's reasonable price was one of the factors that led to its nomination as Best Product number 10 by Fortune magazine. It launched in the US in 1986. In 1985, Chung gave his younger brother, Chung Se-young, who was in charge of the car business then, the order to establish Hyundai Motor America. Hyundai XL subcompacts with Italian design and Mitsubishi engines initially appeared on the American market in 1986. Hyundai experimented with several electric and hybrid vehicles during the 1990s. In 1991, the Sonata electric vehicle prototype was the company's first fully electric vehicle. Following its first hybrid propulsion system testing in 1994, the hybrid electric FGV1 was introduced at the 1995 Seoul Motor Show. This vehicle was equipped with full-time electric driving technology. Flexible fuel cars began development in 1998, while the company's fuel cell electric vehicle efforts began in the late 1990s. By 1996, Hyundai had established a production plant in Irungattukotai near Chennai, India. The Hyundai Group had 34 enterprises and 160 employees by the late 1980s. It built roads, ports, and dams all across the world and created supertankers, automobiles, microchips, and machine tools. The businesses were completely under the control of Chung and his extended family. He, his children, his relatives, and his nieces and nephews made all significant decisions. Hyundai, it must be said, was no different from other chaebols in this sense. The majority of large corporations in Korea have always been and continue to be family-owned and run. By the late 1980s and the 1990s, various circumstances began to arise, including the 1997 Asian financial crisis, which badly affected all major businesses in South Korea. Additionally, a new administration that did not trust the chaebol system enacted policies to dismantle the powerful firms. Towards the end of the 90s, Hyundai had been split into some independent firms. On recovered ground, he constructed a sizable ranch after retiring. Needing 200,000 tons of rock to block the tidal flow, he scuttled an old tanker as the basis for a dike. Chung, a devout Confucian, exemplified both the good and bad of his philosophy. Chung passed away at home in Seoul at the age of 85 from natural causes, and he was buried in accordance with Confucian and Buddhist customs. He is regarded as a representative of Korea's economic miracle and one of the architects of this genuinely exceptional change. He went from being poor to becoming successful as his nation did. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time. Till then, bye.